All right. Hi there, Danitza. I think it says it's connecting the audio. I'm going to wait.
Good evening, Jose Luis.
All right, I see you. Good evening, Danitza. How are you? How do you feel today?
Um, Fine, everything's okay. And you?
Great. That's great to know. I'm fine as well. Thanks for asking, Danitza. So today we're going to continue working. You left. Okay, I'm going to wait a little bit. Okay, I see you there then again, Danitza. Okay, so I was
Yes.
saying that I'm okay, thanks for asking. I was saying also that we're going to continue working in the same way I told you last week. All right, I mean, we're going to check very briefly, right, the contents that we have for this course, and then we go to the writing practice. But I don't know if you have any questions, any comments, or anything you want to tell me before starting with today's activities. Let me know, please, Danitza.
Yes. Well, I remember that you gave me tasks, 10 sentences, I think so. But I didn't remember about what part or what examples. And I also saw the video like 3 times in 2x speed, I don't know. And I didn't um, figure out what was the task or the idea of the task.
Okay, no worries, Danitza. So you were distracted. Okay, no
No.
worries. Again, so this is we're going to do that after this lesson. Okay,
Okay.
the only thing you have to do is to write examples, 1 or 2 examples for each of the usages for comma. Right, one for list of items, one for a pound voice, one for parenthetical phrases, one for introductory phrases. Okay, but we're going to do that now so that we can check those details. Oh, and I also, sorry, I also can see the process that you follow when you write.
Okay.
Okay, but let's do that then after this specific lesson. It's not a lot, not going to take a lot, but again, it's going to be to little by little establish this logic that I told you, and what you showed me is going to be included there. Remember, we're not first going to pay attention to the names when we're combining sentence and sentence, no. Mainly with me, we're going to recognize the main units that are going to form a sentence, a complete idea, and we're going to try to understand all the possible conjugations as you can form different ideas like that. Okay, then later on, when that is clear, we're going to be forming different sentences, right? Types of sentences, and we're going to start giving them a name. Also, if I see that at the moment that's an interesting example, I'm going to tell you, okay? But that's the logic. Before going there, let's cover this briefly. Then it's a passive voice, okay? Let's use 10, 15 minutes tops so that we can go to a real practice. What can you tell me about passive voice? I want to know how much you know about it, but how can you describe, what can you tell me about this specific topic? Danitza, you can try by giving me some examples if you want.
Okay. Mm, uh, okay. Passive voice. You use passive voice. Like when you're trying um, to make the I don't know the object of the sentence, may trying to make them to put in a way that this was performed by the action of the main verb, something like this, like switch the way you told you want to show the performance of the verb in a sentence. So it's like a resource you can use to invert in a certain way. Yeah. Yes, I don't know how can you say this. Mm, well, it's like when you want to switch the way you relate. I don't know how can I say relatar.
It depends. Relate is a possible way, but you can also say tell, narrate. But tell is a way of saying that. Tell, narrate, one of those.
Narrate. I think so. Narrate the performance of the action, something like that. Yes. So I would say that.
Good. Let's try to work on some examples to see. If I ask you, for example, one sentence in passive voice, right? We can use the logic that we were following. So you give me one simple sentence or one complete idea or one independent clause, right? It's the same. Complete idea, simple sentence, independent clause. Passive voice in simple past. How would the example be?
Mm, mm, okay. Uh, well, my active voice could be something like um, I read the book yesterday, and my passive voice would be something like the book was um, read by her yesterday.
Yes, was read by, and you can keep the same object as well, right? Or the agent that can remain the same. Okay, very simple, right? What about in the present perfect continuous? All right, one example of passive voice in the present perfect continuous. How would it be?
Mm, 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 mm. Present perfect continuous, right? Okay.
Yes, that's correct. Present perfect continuous.
Mm, I don't know. Okay, something like I have improving my paper, my thesis, my thesis for a long time, and that will be my active voice. And I think the other way could be something like um, the thesis I um, had been improving um, by her for a long time.
All right. In that, I want to be sure about the writing. Write also that idea, please, only in the chat. That okay, the passive voice, only the passive voice.
Okay. Mm, Where my computer is logging. So, um, Yes, yes. Mhm, 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 mhm. I'm not sure.
Huh?
So,
Okay, now let's check. All right, then again, I'm going to give recommendations. I don't want to spend again a lot of time in this, but if we see some details, I'm going to use some extra time. All right, so let's analyze. I'm going to use your example, but I'm going to use it as part of a short explanation over here. Where is it? Give me a second. Let me close this and this. I'm opening our work over here. Okay, now this is part of unit 2 if I'm not wrong, so I'm going to use this here. Now, let's give us first simple tenses, okay, as you were able to give me before. If I say, right, she reads a book, right, the passive voice is going to be a book is read by her. Okay, again, very simple example so that everything is going to be clear. In past, the same, well, as you said before, right? She read a book, in this case, past, and a book was read by her, right? That's the passive voice. Now, when we get into continuous tenses that needs to pay attention with what happens, we can say she is reading a book. What is the thing that changes? The verb is always going to be in the past participle, the main verb, right? Read, read. But what changes here actually is going to be the verb to be. The verb to be has to be conjugated in this tense. Sometimes it is going to sound weird, but grammatically speaking is going to be correct. So here, a book, this is present continuous. So is the verb to be in the continuous form, and then the main verb in the past participle. All right, by her. Always like that. The verb to be is the one that is going to be conjugated. Of course, here they want to correct this to she's reading a book, of course, because it doesn't make sense to say a simple sentence like this in passive voice, right? This is only for example. in past participle, oh, sorry, in the past continuous is the same, right? She was reading a book. I'm actually going to copy and paste this because it's exactly the same. The only thing that changes is that this is simple past was being read by her. Okay, now in the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous happens the same. If we say she has read a book, simple tense, right? In the past is going to be a book has been read by her. Okay, but if we say the present
um,
perfect continuous, it's the verb to be that has to be conjugated. So has been reading a book, and a book has been read by her.
um,
Okay, so again, here of course it doesn't make a lot of sense. They are going to want to correct because again, no one is going to say that in that way. But grammatically speaking, if you want to say it is correct, why? Because you're saying this. It is in the chat, right? That's what you want to say. So you have a book. Of course, the example is different. I'm using my example. A book has been read by her. The first been is the past participle of the verb to be. The second one is the present participle of the verb to be that we use it in continuous tenses. And the next part is the agent, right? Here, of course, they want to eliminate that because it's not common to say that. There is no need in English to use this passive voice in the continuous tense because it's not that natural. But again, if you want to do it following all the rules grammatically speaking, that is going to be the case. Okay, I wanted to clarify that. I don't know if you have any questions then in your example. Sorry, to make it a real past passive voice, right, sentence, your
Mm.
main verb is always, 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 always going to be in the past participle. Okay, improve is your main verb. So that has to be in the past participle. So it's going to be simple if you say the thesis has, right? This has to be singular because also your thesis is singular, right? If it's plural, it's going to be with E, right? If it's with I, it is singular. So the thesis has been improved by her for a long time. It's also correct, but that's simple present perfect, right? Or present perfect simple. But in this sentence, you should say the thesis has been being improved by her for a long time. And again, grammatically speaking is correct, but saying that in the passive voice is not going to be as common, is not going to be as natural, but that's what you need in case you want to say that in passive voice. All right? I don't know if you have questions or comments about that, Danitza. Let me know, please.
Mm, I know now that it's not natural and apply just frequently, right? So, okay. But could you give me an idea or a context in which this could be well um, bien visto, well, you know,
No, in that way,
appreciated?
yes, it's not going to be said like that. Yes, applied or accepted in well, a case in which these tense can be accepted. Actually, I cannot think of one example right now. This type of structures with the continuous form, I've only seen that Danitza in grammar books. Okay, only in grammar books to teach grammar. But in real, I mean, I wouldn't say real because grammar is also real, of course. But in real situations, I actually, I've never heard or I've never read someone using the passive voice in the past continuous of this type of structures. Okay, why? Because again, it's using the verb to be twice, one of the as the past participle, the other one as the present participle. It's again going to create sometimes more confusion than helping the other person. All right, and in most of the cases, the passive voice is to put attention, right, to give more emphasis on the object that now is going to be the subject of your sentence, and the previous subject is now the agent that is at the end as part of the object, right? But again,
Mm.
I would say that I've never seen this applied to a real life example because of how weird and unnatural it sounds. I've only seen this structure in grammar books because I mean, in order to learn grammar, they teach you to use this idea in this way. But again, I wouldn't give you a specific case, Danita.
Okay.
All right? Okay, good. And again, so this is one of those things that perhaps only in grammar is going to be seen with this precision. Now, let's keep working. I don't know why this is open here. So, but you analyze, right? Also, it has to be clear, and it's that if you write it like this with the correction of has, that's not going to be passive voice, right? What is the, let's say, what is the requirement? What is the, yes, what, not only the requirement, the structure in passive voice has this logic, right? This is the formula, let's say, and it is over here. Okay, and in your example, you're missing this element over here, Anita. To make passive voice and to know that your example is in passive voice, in the chat, your example is not in passive voice. How do we know? Because the main
Mm.
verb is always the verb after the verb to be or after the auxiliary verb. right? Always, always. In your case, is in the present participle with ing. So that's not passive voice. It has to be always in the past participle. So improved. Okay, so the thing that you can say to make this natural and correct is first change this to has. You have the verb to be, and after improve has to be in the past participle. Improved. Okay, that's the first example that I gave, right? The present perfect simple. Okay, and again, that's the minimum because like this, even like this is not going to be correct just because of the form of the main verb. Okay, so remember that rule. Always the main verb can always be in the past participle to be passive voice. If not, it's going to be a different tense. This is now active voice. This is present perfect continuous in active voice. And here you're telling me that the thesis is not receiving anything, that the thesis is actively doing something. The thesis has been improving,
Mm.
right? It's active. And if you say after that by her, it's not going to be correct, okay? Just because of the form of improve. That's another thing that I wanted to mention over there. So with that again, I don't know if you have any questions so that we can give a look at the presentation for passive voice. Let me know, please. That.
Mm, no, I don't have questions.
Okay, it's
Something like
practicing, right? Yeah, tell me.
I fixed the sentence and this is the correct way.
Yes, grammatically speaking, that would be the thing that we have to do. Why? Because let's check all the elements that we need. We have the object as the subject, the thesis, correct. We have the main tense, that is the auxiliary of the tense, that is the present perfect. So it's have or has. After thesis, we have has, correct. Then for the continuous tenses, we always need the verb to be in the past participle, correct. Now, you need also write the verb to be in the continuous tense to show that this is not simple tense, that this is a continuous tense, correct. And then after that, you have the main verb in the past participle, improved. Yes. Then you have the agent by her, and then you have a time reference that gives us an idea of in this time of period of time, right? For a long time. And again, if we go back to our formula, you can see that you have all those. All right, you have, again, the first part, the auxiliary of the verb to be, plus the main verb in the past participle, plus by and the agent. So yes, again, it will be correct, but one more time, Danitza, it wouldn't be as natural. This specific tense in passive voice and continuous passive voice is going to be mainly for grammar purposes. Okay,
Okay.
good. So let's then work on this. Let's read shortly, please. What is voice in English?
Mm, okay. Voice in English expresses the relationship of the subject to the action. Voice has two values: active, the subject does the action, and passive, the subject receives the action.
All right, there you go. Right now, I'm going to just pass through most of the slides to see if you have questions. I'm going to leave it in a chart, but most of it is going to be like that, right? So Shakespeare wrote Hamlet. Hamlet was written by Shakespeare. Always we have to check the object that is now the subject, the verb to be in the tense that we are in, the main verb in the past participle, and the agent. We have everything, right? So active, you have the subject, the verb that is performing, and the object that is receiving the action. In passive, you have the object that now is the subject, the verb that tells about what the subject is receiving now, and the object that is the agent that was previously the subject. The formula that I mentioned before. And again, let's always remember that any case we are in Danitza, the past participle of the main verb is a requirement, is obligatory. If we don't have the past participle of the main verb, we're automatically in a different tense, in a different voice, and it's going to be the active voice. All right, this is what is going to make passive, the verb to be plus the main verb in the past participle. And in between, anything that is going to clarify the specific tense as the continuous form. All right, here we have some examples, and actually I want to read, or I want you to read these examples, please.
Okay. I'm employed by Apple. You will be working at 6. It will have been finished by then. We have been notified by head office. You are being transferred next week. They will have paid. No, they will be paid. Right? So.
Exactly. And if you check at the penultimate example, this perhaps is going to be something that you're going to see that it's because it's not as complex. When I mean that it's something for grammar, is when you have a complex structure with an auxiliary verb, then you have the verb to be in the past participle, then you have the verb to be in the present participle. That combination is going to create again something that is going to be more confusing than helpful. But if you simply have the verb to be and then the verb to be in the present participle, it is good. So that's why, yes, this structure, not the present perfect continuous, not the past perfect continuous in passive voice, but the present continuous in passive voice and the past continuous in the passive voice, yes, you can find that in many situations. This is one of them. You are being transferred next week, right? She's being explained, right? She's being explained what she has to do. That's correct. I was being guided by the new, I don't know, right? By the new CEO, for example. So present continuous, past participle, it is good because you don't have that conflict between verb to be in past participle, verb to be in present participle, okay? That again creates not only confusion in terms of phonetics, in terms of how you listen to those words that sometimes they sound the same, but also again in the meaning that you want to convey. All right. So once again, I'm clarifying that then continuous tenses are more natural when they are simple, present continuous and present and past continuous. But when you have more complex ideas like perfect tenses, it is going to create a confusion. All right. I wanted to clarify that. Let's keep going and you let me know the questions that you might have. This is an example of different tenses in active voice and in passive voice. All right, so let's also read this, please, Danitza.
Okay. The verb to be in the passive voice must have the same tense as the active voice. Peter buys a car. A car is bought by Peter. Peter bought, pardon. Bought a car. A car was bought by Peter. Peter has bought a car. A car has been bought by Peter. Peter will buy a car. A car will be bought by Peter.
There you go, right? There you repeated it. Thank you, Danitza. But this is important when you are learning. In this case, you're not learning, right? But you need to reinforce a little bit because of the mistake you made that if it's going to be passive voice, always the only thing that changes is the verb to be, and always the main verb will be in past participle, right? If one of those two elements, those two requirements is not there, I can assure you that you are not going to be in passive voice. Okay, it's going to be something else. It can be informal passive voice, for example, for newspapers, right? In newspapers, they sometimes omit for the headline, right? They omit the verb to be. But that's because it's informal and it's a way of presenting information, only newspapers. But newspapers, right, are not academic, right? They are not following all the writing rules that there is to apply. They are doing some exceptions in order to create, right, an effect on the reader. But in this case, for sorry, for grammar, for academic writing, for essays, we never omit verb to be or the past participle, because that's what makes passive voice. Okay, again, I'm clarifying that because it has to be there. Now, very briefly, we don't need to read this. First, reason to use passive voice: emphasize the receiver of the action. Second reason, we don't know who did the action. Third reason, we think that the agent is not important or interesting. The fourth one is that the agent is obvious, so we don't have to mention it. Fifth one, we're making a general statement or an announcement. We use passive voice. Sixth one, the agent is everyone, so it's a very generic idea. Seventh one, all right, this is formal writing for a scientific text. That's a good way of using passive voice. Eighth one, right, to avoid responsibility. If someone made a mistake and we don't want to mention, right, that person that made a mistake, of course, we can only say something in passive voice. In that way, we avoid saying who did that mistake, who made that mistake, sorry, and we avoid that responsibility. But again, that's mainly when there's a good reason not to say who did it. All right, and that's it. This is part of the source that I use for that purpose. But again, I want to know now if you have any questions about this so that we can go to a writing practice for the commas and other details. Let me know, please, Danitza.
Yes. Questions about this? No, but I know that I have to practice more this specific because it's, as you mentioned, something really strange to read. To read. Yes.
Good. Now, I'm going to give you a task, all right? Because again, in order to work with all the elements that I want to work, I really need you to do some extra things, Danitza. All right? In this case, it's about passive voice. It can be for Wednesday or it can be, and remember also the task that I gave you, right? It was for Monday or for Wednesday. So it's good that we're going to do it for today, all right? But this one again, this is for Wednesday or Friday, Danitza, but we have to do it. You're going to write active voice and passive voice examples in every tense that there is in English. Okay, all the tense. Simple present with the verb to be, simple present with other verbs, present continuous, simple present with the verb to be, simple present with other verbs, past continuous, present perfect simple, present perfect continuous, past perfect simple, past perfect continuous, simple future continuous, future will be going to, future will be going to continuous, all right? And I forgot, right? Future perfect, future perfect continuous, and at least those are the most important ones. And then some using models, okay? Regular models and perfect models, okay? And perfect models. So all of them, you might have a list, right? You have the books, you have a lot of information on the internet. So all those tenses, including continuous tenses, remember, in some of them, you're going to have corrections because once again, they are not natural in all the tenses because of the sound, because of the confusion that they might create. But for grammar, it is important to work on all those examples so that you're always 100% sure that your sentence is going to be in passive voice. Okay, so that's the task. I don't know if you have any questions about it.
No, right now, no. Okay, so all the tenses, models, and perfect models,
Exactly.
and
And
active
all
and
of them
passive.
in active voice and passive voice. Exactly. Next, right? You can work on a table if you want, on a chart, and they are going to be one next to the other one. All right, to compare active voice, passive voice. And remember, right? Not all, and actually, yes, it's going to be perhaps easier, okay, then it's just going to be easier, but try to work only with one verb so that you see the difference. Okay, one sentence, the same sentence, it has to be an action verb, right, to work in the continuous tense. But the same sentence in active voice, passive voice, in all the tenses, and with at least one model that is a regular model and one that is a perfect model. Okay, that's the only requirement, right?
Okay.
Good. Now, with that said, it means we can go to our practice. I'm going to just review, not review, I'm just going to mention the things that we have to do now, Danitza. So I believe that, yes, of course, you are here. You have to be please here in document, Danitza. It is right part of the new course, A10. As you're going there, I'm going to open the presentation or the other course, A13, and I'm going to remind you what you have to write now.
Yes.
Okay, so remember, you're going to give me, but give me, I'm going to ask you for good examples. Okay, what I mean by good examples? Every example is good, of course, but good at the level that we want to practice. All right, so this, for example, is not going to be good as an example for our level, okay, for the level you're in. Instead of these items, remember what I told you, Denise. An item can also be an activity, and the activity can be long. I'm going to give you one example. You can say, right, um, okay, every Saturday since I remember, I've always enjoyed playing the guitar after doing my homework, comma, in practicing some piano to remember, right, specific chords, comma, take a look at some extra elements in order not to forget what I have to do, comma, and, right, studying for whatever thing I have to do the next day. Okay, that's a simple sentence. That's only one sentence, and that those were only items, separated items. But those items are a little bit more complex. But we are still using only commas, and that's still only one simple sentence. Okay, again, it doesn't have to be that long, or I don't know, but I want examples like that. All right, to show me that you understand and you can identify items not only as one word, but and one item can be 2 words, 3 words, 5 words, 10 words, as long as it is a noun clause, for example. And it's going to be like a noun clause when you use gerund. And after the gerund, you have objects describing that gerund. And remember, that's not going to be a new verb. A gerund is an activity. All right, so that was my example. You can follow that in a certain way and write one example like that. So you need one example with a list of items, one example with independent clauses, all right, and using fanboys, right, coordinating conjunctions. Here, I'm not going to ask you to be so complex, and it's not just well, the necessary. Why? Because if you are too complex, we're going to go to the rule of semicolon. When the idea is too complex and you have commas before the but, comma, and after that, comma, you're going to use semicolon instead of comma. Okay, so in order not to use that rule yet, here only give me two complete ideas, right? You can call them clauses separated by a fanboy. Okay, but my only requirement is going to be use one fanboy, one coordinating conjunction that you don't frequently use. Okay, don't use and, don't use so, don't use but. Okay, use something else, one of the fanboys that you don't use frequently. One as an introductory phrase. Also here, I cannot ask you to be complex, but try to be complex as well. After the introductory phrase, right, in preparation for the next convention, sorry, right, before the exam, after our class, right, on Monday, in this place, and so on and so forth, comma, try to give me any type of sentence that you want after that, Anita. It can be a simple sentence, it can be a compound sentence, or it can be a complex sentence, right? You know the difference. There is more, we know that there is more, but what I gave you in our document, that's the basics that you know, then we're going to be combining, all right? And finally, parenthetical phrase, interrupter. Remember that this, Danitza, is only going to be correct if you have, it doesn't matter what, You can have, again, simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence. You can have anything you want. But if in between one of your complete ideas, you can place a phrase that is optional, it means if it's there, good. If it's not there, it's still good, and it's still clear, and it's still grammatically correct, right? So if grammatically speaking, your sentence is correct with this parenthetical phrase and without this parenthetical phrase, then you're using this correctly. Okay, it has to be something optional, always optional, that is not necessary for the sentence to be correct. And that's it. Those are the 4 examples that we need. So I don't know if you have any questions, so I can give you the time to work on those examples. Again, they are only sentences, but it's up to you how you can form the sentences. The only one that I'm going to ask you again not to be so complex is going to be the second type, with coordinating conjunctions. Because if we want to use a comma, we need only simple sentence here, fanboy, comma, fanboy, and simple sentence here. Okay, without a lot of other elements in order to use the comma. But again, I'm going around again there. I don't know if you have questions, Danny, so please let me know.
Mhm. Just only one example for each application, for each use.
Yes, in this case, only one. But again, try to write complex ideas, at least in the ones that I told you to be complex. And and this one, the one that you can see here, try to keep it simple. Okay, but yes, only one per type, please. And it's in order to get to cover more contents. All right,
Okay.
good. Let's do it, please. We're going to try to have a timer as always. Actually, we're going to see it here. It's 9:59. We're going to have it until 10 and 10:01, 10:02. All right, and at that time we check, please. All right, let's work on that, please, Denise. And if you finish before, please let me know. Remember that this presentation is also in the previous course in case you want to check that.
Okay.
Okay, it's about to be 10:02. I'm going to check how you're doing and we're going to see. All right. Okay, we have one so far. Again, right, I know it can be hard sometimes to think of these ideas, but let's keep working on this. All right, there you go. Let's check what you got. All right, those are the 4 elements. And again, sometimes it's going to take us longer, but the idea is that little by little, that has to be more and more automatic, more and more natural. All right, I'm going to use everything here. Let me give the example to finish. Now, in general, I believe that we're using the punctuation marks correctly. Okay, that is good. The details that I have to correct are related to elements that we don't need over there, conjugations or prepositions or little details that escape though, right as you were writing. So um, first, I'm going to work on the corrections and feedback, and you're going to have another task. It's not going to take a lot, Danitza, but I want you to take notes so that you know what you have to do. Because again, this is going to be very important for the process of writing. You need a lot of extra time for doing these things. And actually, well, these first things that I'm giving you, they are very short. But little by little, I'm going to ask you more and more. All right. And again, if you are really committed to learning and improving your writing skills, I need you to use some extra time that perhaps instead of sleeping at, I don't know, 2 a.m., you're going to sleep at 3 a.m. Okay. Not now, but then later on. All right. I believe that everything needs some sacrifice in order to really improve in that matter. All right. But again, first, let me give you the feedback. For now, this second task is also very short. But again, little by little, I'm going to be asking you more and more. Now, list of items, short phrases. Yes, this is correct. This, as I'm going to make on the corrections, Anita, you're also going to take notes. This is an introductory phrase. So please, I want you to use one specific color for introductory phrases. Okay? In all the sentences that you're going to write, you are going to use the same color for introductory phrases. So this has to be with one color. Okay, take that into account. Now that's correct. Now, when you have a list of items, words, right, phrases, if you're using gerund, you only repeat the gerund. If you're using infinitive, you only repeat the infinitive. If you use one verb, you don't have to repeat that same verb over and over again. You only need to use the gerund because we're still using that specific, or if it's not the gerund in this case, sorry, it's going to be the present participle working as a possible gerund. But as this is clear and this is affecting the next and the next and the next, we only need to use this once. All right. So she's improving her writing, comma, taking some advanced, right? Advanced is going to be to go ahead, but advanced is going to be not an article, sorry, an adjective. Okay, so it's going to be advanced math courses. All right, ED because this is an adjective. Here only this because we only use the part of the conjugation that is necessary if the verb is the same for all the next verbs that we got, or if it's gerund or if it's infinitive, as I was saying. Here the same, right? And making directly. And here we use a comma, not because it is a fanboy. This is not a coordinating conjunction. This is only going to be, all right, connecting the list of items, and the comma is not because of that. It is because it is a list of items, right? And we have more than 2 items. That's the first one. Everything else seems to be good. Now, also the other thing that you're going to be doing here, then it's, we're always going to identify, in this case, it's not necessary yet to color the subject and the verb because it is simple here. But here you're going to color the list of items of one specific color, okay? And at least the beginning of each writing or each item. Improving, taking, and making. Okay, that's going to be with one color, and also coloring this end and the last idea. It's going to be just one color, all these items. Okay, that's going to be for list of items. Then to separate clauses with conjunctions, with coordinating conjunctions, right? So by the end of the day, this is another introductory phrase. So this has to be the same color as in order to achieve her goals and due to the stress, right? this is something more specific than just an introductory phrase, but in this case, it is working as an introductory phrase, right? So in all these cases, please, only one color, here the same. I believe this is they, right? This is just a misspell, so it's not going to be with you, right? They have been able to fix the code, but here you're missing the most important rule, right? And it's this one. And also remember, right? This time is okay, but you have to try to use other coordinating conjunctions, right? Don't use and every time because we are not, right, adding anything new by doing that. Try to use yet, try to use for, try to use or, even that's also common, but less common than and, but, and so. So, or even if you want a challenge, try to use nor. Okay, using those four is going to be more challenging and is going to be, well, more fruitful. Okay, you're going to have more good results at the end. And the other one entity has, right? The other team has already. What do we use in the present perfect? Past participle, right? So no past, it has passed, right? The current stage. All right, and it's correct. Okay, but remember, this is the most important part. You didn't use it, and be careful with these conjugations, right? Team as one entity is going to be a singular and always the past participle of the verb. Then introductory phrase again. This, yes, due to you have despite, in spite of, all right. Those are going to be very specific ways of saying something, and most of the cases they are going to be considered as a complete structure, even though they are phrases. But yes, in specific ideas, and in this one, if you want to use that as an introductory phrase, it is valid because it is just that. Okay, so due to stress, or in general, it can also be the stress because it's a general thing that we feel, right? He achieved a good score. Okay, no, but if you say due to stress, he achieved a good score, yes, I mean, it's good, right? Because the stress can be positive, it's not always negative. If it doesn't get to be, right, that negative stress in which your body and everything is affected, I agree with this, right? But for general, right, language, the stress can be negative. So if you're stating here that the stress is a good thing that makes him do things faster and he can concentrate even more because of that, it's possible sometimes, it is good. All right, but if you're giving it the negative connotation, we can change the idea. But again, grammatically speaking, and in actually the medical way of stress, I believe that is good. Then, right, to separate, so the same here, right? One color, just for the introductory phrase, and the article, which was published in 2019, has many mentions this year. Now, it can be has many mentions, or if you're talking about something that started in 2019, right? Um, or that started in the past and continues in the present, you can use the present perfect. Okay, this article, you're using, yes, something that is specific in time, but it's not specific for the action. You're mentioning something else about something specific in 2019. So here we can still use the present perfect. That's an alternative if you're talking about, again, something that started in the past and continuing to the future, all right? But like that, it works, and this is going to be with a different color. All right, now I'm telling you that because down below we're going to continue working with these elements, and we're going to try to use, every time we see an introductory phrase, the same color. Every time we use a list of items, yes, the same color. Every time we see an interrupter, the same color. And I didn't say that here, yes, but here you're going to identify the first complete idea with one color and the second complete idea with the fanboy with a different color. That's two colors combined. And that's going to be every time we have a compound sentence. Okay, the complete idea, comma, the fanboy, and the second complete idea. And here, if you want, little by little, if you want, you can start that now. You can start identifying at least the most basic elements that are going to be subject, verb, and complement. And then as you're going to be writing more complex ideas, the complement is going to be divided in object, is going to be divided in place and in time. And it's going to go from specific to general. All right, that little by little. I'm not saying that now because we don't have those elements, but that's it. Those are my corrections, recommendations, and those are actually right instructions for another task that you have that it's only highlighting or coloring those elements as I told you. All right, we have to use different colors so that in more complex ideas, we can easily find those elements, right? And whenever I ask you what are the introductory phrases you have in that specific essay, we can easily find them all over the essay, all right? And we can verify if they are correct or not. But that's it. That's the thing that we can get to do today. Again, it took us a lot, right? A lot of time, but it's because we are still getting used to these ideas, but we have to make it natural. And again, to make it natural, I'm going to give you more elements to work on that. I already gave, all right, a lot of, well, repetitive ideas over there. I don't know if you have questions or comments to be finishing today, Danny. So please let me know.
Yes, about due to stress. Well, my idea was the one you mentioned, that even when the levels of stress were too high, he achieved a good score. So here my sentence is not showing that, right? It's not.
Yes, it's not showing that because you're saying that thanks to the stress, in other words.
Yes, yes.
So
Can I
again, yeah, tell me, Danny.
can I use another introductory phrase that is some sophisticated, not just because of the stress, for example, another word
But you want to
way.
say that it's negative, right? That you
Yes.
want to say that it was a stress, but actually, I have to give you, right? Here you have to use in spite of or despite. Okay, you need those two. In spite of the
Okay.
stress, right? So it doesn't matter. There was a stress, but it doesn't matter. He achieved a good score. Okay, so despite or in spite of. Okay, actually, let me write it for you over here.
Please.
Okay, despite or in spite of. That's
In
what you
spite of that was maybe.
exactly because due to is the same as because of, and they are not positive or negative. They are neutral, but they are mostly related to something positive. Right? So you say because of, right, the love that I have for you, I did all these things. So it can be related mostly with positive things. But if you say in spite of the love that I have for you, I couldn't stay with you, right? So it's going to be always the opposite to what we expect. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
great. That's it.
I have one more question here. You
Yes.
mentioned that the last example about the article, if I use past perfect, oh, yes, no, present perfect, right? The meaning is still the same because here my first idea was just the article has many mentions this year, like just like mm, uh, a simple sentence, present. Oh, yes, this year.
Okay.
But and I put I don't know how can I do this. The parenthetical phrase or interrupted phrase in past, like um, uh, to add information.
Exactly. And it's correct. Okay, everything here is correct. But I just mentioned another possibility because if this year is still this year, which is the case here, right? It is very common to use present perfect ideas with
Mm,
expressions of this year, this week, this month.
correct.
Why? Because as this is still going on,
Mm,
we can understand that this is still going to change. And we can say, like, so far, right? This year, so far,
mm,
right, it has had many mentions. But again, it's not necessary, but grammatically speaking, it's an alternative because it's common to use the present perfect with that expression. Okay, but
Okay.
it's not obligatory. Mhm.
Yes.
All
Okay.
right,
Understood.
good. There you go. I don't know if you have any other details.
No, I
All
don't.
right, good. So remember, please, we have two tasks. Again, I'm not going to tell you that they have to be for Wednesday, but if they can be for Wednesday, great. Remember, in all tenses, active voice and passive voice, same verb so that we can see the difference and how it changes, how the verb to be changes mainly, because the main verb is going to remain the same. And this, use different colors for all the main ways in which we use commas so that in future examples, we can repeat and use those colors again. All right, and at least to identify. Those are the only tasks. With this, we're finishing today. I don't know again if you have any comments to finish then the class. So let me know, please.
Mm, yes. And the second task is color this examples. Okay.
Exactly. Just highlighting. You can color the letters if you want, the characters, or you can highlight it, right? One of two options. But yes, it's just coloring, using different colors for introductory phrases, or I mean, one color for all the introductory phrases that you have here, one for all the parenthetical phrases that you got, one color for all the list of items, only where you have the list of items. And for this, for the coordinating conjunctions, you need to use one color for the first complete idea and one color for the second complete idea that is joined by a coordinating conjunction. That's the only thing, only coloring, because later on you're going to repeat those colors whenever we have those commas as part of our writing exercises.
Okay.
All right, there
Okay.
you go. Great. Yeah, tell me, Danita, I couldn't hear very well.
It's okay.
Okay, good. So you have the poll over there. Let's fill it out, please. I'll see you then on Wednesday. All right, I hope you have a good night. Thanks for being in today's class again. On Wednesday, we continue working with everything.
Okay. See you Wednesday.
Bye bye. Good night.
Good night.